Welcome to the DFS Build NBA edition. I'm Kevin Roberts, joined by Taylor Smith, getting ready to go over this 3-game main slate over at DraftKings. Hopefully, we can help you win some cash. If anything we do here in this video does help you, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. We checked our YouTube analytics, and we know that a lot of people come back and keep watching, so please help us out and give us a subscribe. That way you get alerted to future videos, and you also throw us a bone too. You can also get more than what you're already getting from these videos. We give out finalized core plays for every sport that we cover. Speaking of which, we have MLB, DFS picks, and stacks for today's big 12-game slate. Probably no video today for MLB, so you might want to get in there. Just $5.99 for the entire month for MLB, NBA, UFL, and MMA, and of course NFL when it does roll around. All right. So the way we do this for NBA, we go position by position, highlighting the top plays that we like the most, add a little nuance to it, factor in projections, ownership, matchups, all that fun stuff, and hopefully can help you win some money. So Luka Doncic starts the bidding here, $11K, pretty expensive. 3-game slate, like anytime a guy this good is going to be unowned, you could certainly entertain going over. I think if I'm rolling out a lot of lineups, I would go, I'd meet the 15% or go a little bit over, but he's just not really on my radar right now personally. What about you?
Yeah, he's going to kind of fly under the radar. Like it's a Giannis slate, and Giannis' matchup is better. The Bucks are at home. Indiana's been an attackable paint defense all season. They don't rebound that well, so it's kind of the nut matchup for Giannis. I think the ownership is going to be very skewed in his favor. So Luka, he's not going to be unowned, I assume, but it's hard to get to him, and there's a lot of value at point guard, as there always is, especially in the mid range. So I would like to get to him. Obviously, he's viable in all formats. If you want to fade Giannis and get to Luka instead, that's a completely fine pivot, even if it doesn't look necessarily optimal in median projections. Obviously, Luka's ceiling is sky high. So I would like to get over the field on Luka as well, but there are obviously other ones at this position who stand out a lot.
Yeah, you can certainly do just based off of ownership and the fact that they're kind of the same price. Projection's not that far off. You can certainly go to Luka there. I just don't see where the upside is really on it. I don't think unless there's a blowout here, I don't think Luka is going to go far and away above Giannis. I love saying these kind of things and then just eating those words, just eating Major Crow later in the day, right? But the reality is, Giannis is not that much more expensive. He's got the way better spot. The series is shifting into Minnesota. Obviously, it's a tough defensive matchup for the Lakers. The last game, both teams scored under 100 points. So, if that is what that series is going to be, obviously, I do want to get away from paying a premium for players in that series. I do still like value in that series, by the way, but just keep that in mind. So Luka at low ownership is appealing, but I'm not really getting there. Another big reason besides Giannis is just point guards loaded still. Tyrese Halliburton, 47-point fantasy projection, Ant at 8.5K, and even Dame at 7.8. This is before we get into the Boston guys. There's a lot to like here. Hallie and Ant just obviously stand out way more than Luka. Do you have a lean as far as which of those two guys you like more?
Not really. I think Halliburton's going to be more owned at a slightly cheaper salary, but both are going to be very popular. And that kind of makes me more interested in the double spend up. It is possible to get Luka with Giannis if you do a lot of shitty stuff elsewhere, which is obviously scary and has a low floor, but it also has a huge ceiling if you can manage to hit the deep guys. Everyone's going to pair Tyrese Halliburton with Anthony Edwards and kind of a more balanced build. So I see the merit to that. But you're going to have to find a way to get different elsewhere if that's what everyone's doing. I think Halliburton is the more underpriced of the two at 8.4, where Edwards is 8.5. But, the game environment just favors Halliburton, so I would lean his way.
Yeah, it does. I mean, that one has a 230 total. It's the best total on the slate by far. So I'm with you there. I think they both look really good. I just think they're better plays compared to Luka, obviously way cheaper. And they do have ceilings. I don't love that they're both going to be really owned, but as we say a lot of times, eating the chalk just makes sense. And this is going to be part of the whole conversation when we get into Bobby, who's just obscene chalk at the moment. But depending on what you do with Bobby and some other chalky pieces, I don't really care about the ownership that much with those two guys in particular. Dame though is really interesting. He's only coming at 18%. He's not as safe as Ant or Hallie. You could even argue that they just simply have better ceilings than him too. But obviously there's narrative street here. The series shifting back to the Bucks. Dame has beef with the Pacers. It is a good matchup for Dame. And 7.8 for Dame, even with, the whole Giannis factor, that feels incredibly cheap. To me, his ownership is way too low. So I'm just going to go like way over on this ownership.
Yeah, it's similar to John Morant, just like his
Yeah.
price keeps coming down. He wasn't great in his first game, but it was his first game in quite a while. Like you said, they're at home. I don't remember him ever being under 8K on any slate in history.
No.
So it's certainly something. If you want to fade Giannis and play him, you can obviously play him together. Like, everyone's underpriced, so pairing them is completely fine. If you do that, you might get leverage on someone like Bobby Portis if you fade him and just hope that the usage congregates with Dame and Giannis almost exclusively. I think that's okay. I do think he's a good play at low ownership. We'll see what happens with the Boston stuff. Like, they have two questionable guys, and Tatum is doubtful. So there's a chance we can see a lot of value here. Like, Peyton Pritchard could wind up as the most chalky player on the slate if Drew Holiday is out or if Jaylen Brown is out. Derek White could gain some steam in that situation. Even Holiday himself, like if Brown is out and Holiday plays, I think Drew's going to be pretty chalky. So this is a rare playoff slate where we have like legit slate altering news pending.
Yeah.
So what we're looking at now could be fairly different by the time lock rolls around.
It's true. That said, as things stand, it's hard for me to believe that Jaylen Brown's also going to miss with Tatum doubtful, but you just never know.
I don't know. He got a midday downgrade, which is not a good sign.
I know. I'm just saying. But yeah, Dame looks great as far as ownership is concerned. Like, the price is amazing. The projection is totally fine. I'm just going to be over for sure. So the Boston thing, we can't really speak to it that much. Like, all we know for sure is Tatum's almost definitely not going to play. And this game is the worst DFS environment of the slate. Now, that's what we said a couple days ago, and then all those Celtics guys hit, which was super annoying. That doesn't change. Like, this is still a slow-paced, defensive-minded game coming from the Orlando side in particular. And the series shifts to, Orlando as well. So, and now with some guys like coming out, like, I think the cheap guys would certainly make a lot of sense, but then I'd be a little bit more hesitant to buy into, Jaylen if he plays, maybe even Porzingis, even though I still really like the price and the ceiling. That said, you can give your thoughts on those guys in a second, but I want to talk about Austin Reeves because I have him as one of my top plays of the entire slate. He is just way too cheap. Like, we talk about everybody getting soft pricing. Austin Reeves is now 6.5K. He's going to be out there the entire game. He's not the focal point of the defense. His usage rate has gone way down the first two games of the series, like, no doubt about it. But at some point, Austin Reeves is going to explode in the series. There's just no doubt in my mind he's going to do something big. So why not in game 3 at this crazy low price? So what are your thoughts on him, and what do you make of the Boston situation?
Yeah, Reeves is cheap, but I think you might be able to make a case that this is an appropriate salary for him, and that maybe he was overpriced before for the situation with Luka and LeBron both there. There's certainly a ceiling. He's going to get the minutes. He's going to play 40-ish minutes, assuming the game's competitive. So I do think he's a good play. I will have him plenty. If he's going to be like mega chalk, there's obviously enough else at the guard spot to where I don't think you're not doing it wrong if you come in under the field on him. But for now, he's a good play. And the Boston thing, like, it's kind of a wait and see. Like, depending on what happens with Tatum and Brown, maybe someone like Sam Hauser pops out. Drew is obviously pretty correlated to Peyton Pritchard becoming an elite value at only 5,600. Even if Jaylen Brown is out and Drew is in, like, they're going to need usage from someone, and Pritchard's someone who's happy to let it fly off the bench. So I feel like someone's going to miss like two questionable guys. Drew Holiday is an old man, so no telling how that'll go, but I feel pretty confident that Tatum won't be the only one missing from the lineup. So Pritchard's probably going to look better by lock. And then White, not as underpriced as anyone else on the slate. Like, he's 7,200, which is pretty full. But Brown and Holiday and Tatum are out, he's really going to have to do a lot. So I feel okay with that in that scenario.
Yeah. I think if that news does drop, pretty much all the main Celtics are going to look good, and it's going to be tough to get away from that for sure. Like, okay, so if that happens, if we're just say Drew and Jaylen and Taysom are all out, is there a Celtic that you kind of like look at as a major trap?
White, I guess, just because he's the most expensive other than Porzingis. I feel pretty good about Porzingis. The others are all cheap though, like Horford and Pritchard and Hauser and whoever else. Like they're just kind of running out of guys who can get usage. So it's tough to think Pritchard would be a trap. He's shown a high ceiling all year. I think White would still be the worst of that group at the salary, but I'd still be okay with him overall.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so we do still have other value before that clears up. We have Andrew Nemhard at 5.1. He's getting good minutes. It is a good matchup. And you have Dante DiVincenzo, who had major foul trouble in the last game, so he did not hit. I would kind of ignore the game 2 for Dante because he's going to get decent minutes here, and it's a solid enough matchup. And he's not very owned. So at 4.4, I think he's a bit of an underrated value right now. Nemhard's just okay. I think at the price points, I prefer Dante. And of course, you do have your boy TJ McConnell, 3.7K, seems to get 20 plus fantasy points every time he faces the Bucks. So if you're going up for Giannis or Luka, or even trying to pair them, I think TJ would then quickly become a bit of a priority, especially since people are actually playing KCP on this slate. What are your thoughts about these guys and taking dives at point guard?
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity cost at point guard since there's so many great plays. You don't want to whiff on any of them, but I do agree that I'd rather play McConnell than KCP, of course. I'd rather play anyone than KCP, essentially, especially if KCP is 30% owned. So McConnell, good per minute guy off the bench, still cheap, totally fine with it. Nemhard, I think, is still underpriced, even at 5.1. Like you said, the matchup's good. He plays a ton. He's just a good player. So I think I'm okay with that, even if he's owned at 5.1. DiVincenzo and Naz Reid both had major foul trouble in the last game, like you said, with DiVincenzo. So not going to look too deep into that. I think he's a great play again, just like he was the other night. Still prefer him to Conley at the similar salaries. And then I think you can punt with Anthony Black as a KCP pivot, but large field only probably.
Yeah, I'm with you on Dante over Conley as well. I think the only way I'd go the other way is if the ownership was like really, really slanted towards Dante, but right now it's just split, and those guys are kind of overlooked on the slate. So not in on Conley whatsoever. I think McConnell is just like, if you really need that money, it's not like I want to go out of my way to play McConnell. But Dante is like the first point guard value where I'm feeling pretty good, especially since he's shooting guard eligible. Speaking of shooting guards, Ant leads away with a 46-point fantasy projection. He is going to be owned, but he looks really good once again at home against the Lakers. Too cheap. And then you have Jaylen Brown. If he's in at 8.1, he smashed with 60 fantasy points in the last game. No Tatum, almost definitely. And so if Jaylen's in without Tatum, he would look really, really good. I don't want to waste too much time on him, though, because obviously it's trending in the direction where he could sit. Austin Reeves is also eligible here at shooting guard. And then the other Celtics guys who we already touched on, Pritchard and Drew could be used here. So what are you doing here? Do you feel compelled to pay for Ant or Jaylen if he's in, or you want to save cash here?
I do think paying for Ant's totally fine. Like I said, like a mid-range build with Halliburton and Ant is going to be popular, but Edwards 8.5 is in a price and shooting guard eligible, which is really useful. Brown's a really good pivot, though, if he's in. Like, he's questionable. He's already projecting for lower ownership. And I think the Q tag is just going to naturally lower that, even if he plays. So if you're getting Brown at a fraction of Ant's ownership, obviously he has a similar ceiling. So don't mind that at all, even if he's banged up a little bit. Reeves is still there. Otherwise, I'm kind of punting. Like I mentioned, I don't really want to play KCP into ownership. I would just instead play guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Gary Trent Jr. We talked about DiVincenzo. They are similar plays in that they have very low floors, but they're also coming in a little lower owned than KCP. So that's just ownership I'm going to make, I think. And I think my favorite overall value at the position is, once again, Aaron Nesmith, who gets all the minutes. If Ben Mathurin doesn't outplay him off the bench, he played 30 in the last game, 27 in the first game. Not a high usage guy. He's got a low floor as well, but only 4,600 guard forward. I don't mind that.
Yeah, I just think the presence of Giannis and Luka is, boosting a lot of these shitty plays that we'd never want to use otherwise. KCP, Nah, who's the other one? Gary Trent. Like, do we really feel good about these guys? I don't. So I think the first value, like I said, is going to be Dante. He's the first one I feel reasonably good about. I like the Aaron Nesmith call. Him and Nemhard are both solid place. Like, I just don't really feel great about these monster dives here. Sure, like if Giannis and Luka go ape shit, like then it could be kind of offset, but it just feels really thin. And like we said, like those Celtics guys could end up being like easy auto plays too. And I am personally very high on Austin Reeves. I like that his ownership isn't egregious at that price. That small forward LeBron leads the way. He has not been that dude for a while, basically ever since return from injury. We say it every time we cover him on a slate. But hey, you just never know when he's going to go into playoff LeBron mode and beast out. He's only 9.5K.
Last game.
Yeah, he was. He had like 50 fantasy points. He's had a few games where he had like 50, 52. I'm just saying he's like definitely been deferring to Luka, like as you said last time. It's just that's the reality. That said, at 5% ownership, I am actually pretty interested in going way over on LeBron, just because with Luka and Giannis there, he is a guy who's capable of matching them with 60 to 65 fantasy points in a huge game 3 here. So I do like going over on him. Just worth noting and setting the foundation of the fact that he has not really been that 60, 65 point fantasy guy. You got Jalen, you got Wagner. Like, definitely prefer Jalen over Wagner. If I was talking about like a lot of ownership here, it would be Jalen over LeBron as well. Not super interested in Wagner personally. I like the value at small forward though. Jaden McDaniels, just monster minutes. His price hiked up, but I don't really care. I love him. Rui does not have a massive ceiling, and he can have a low floor, but I like the minutes and the price. Very cheap for a guy who's going to play 35 minutes in a close game and can explode as a scorer. So that's where I'm at right there. Rui and McDaniels feel like two of the best plays in the entire slate, honestly, especially when we start talking about KCP and Trent and all these spares. These guys are just a little bit more expensive, and they feel, they have all these minutes just like guaranteed, basically.
Yeah, KCP also has guaranteed minutes. Obviously, he's not guaranteed to do a damn thing with them. But
yeah,
the same is true of McDaniels, and you're paying more for him. So, like, he's an okay play. The ceiling is definitely higher with McDaniels, but you're paying for it. So I'm okay with him. I don't really love anything here. I think LeBron is very interesting, like you said, at low ownership. If you want to pay it to be different at the position, like it's kind of a pivot away from Jaylen Brown / Edwards as mid-range spends, so it's fine. I'm probably just saving here with someone like Neesmith or Hauser if that opens up later on. Wagner's okay. I just prefer Bankero, even at the higher salary. Rui's fine. Like, yeah, there's really nothing. It's not like this is a really, really terrible position. So I just kind of want to play Neesmith and move on.
Yeah, we disagree there. I think the difference between somebody like McDaniels or Rui compared to like KCP is that they actually have a proven track record of getting there. Like McDaniels isn't going to have the same usage he had when a bunch of those Timberwolves guys were out, but he just plays monster minutes and just naturally consistently does more than KCP. Like KCP has to score like 18 to 20 real points to hit. And
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying like neither is a good per minute guy, and you're paying more for McDaniels, so.
Gladly so. All right, over to power forward we go. Giannis leads away with a 65-point fantasy projection, highest of the entire slate, carrying monster ownership at 43%. He had almost 70 fantasy points in game 2. This is obviously a massive game with the Bucks down 2-0. Series shifting to Milwaukee. If I pay up for anybody over, there's only 2 guys over even 10K, but if I pay up for anybody over 9K, the guy who I'm probably going to pay up for is going to be Giannis. I do like LeBron here at low ownership. But this is just such a smash spot for Giannis, and like everything, the season's basically on the line here. You don't win when you go down 3 games to nothing. So the fact that he's chalky, you could certainly entertain going under. This just probably is not something I'm going to do. I think I'm going to go after Giannis pretty aggressively.
Yeah, no reason not to. Like I said earlier, it's like the nut matchup for him. So
right.
Again, he's just a great play. I don't care about the ownership.
No.
I will be over or around the field on him. Siakam again underpriced relative to where he normally is, but again that's kind of the case with everybody in these playoff slates. 7,300, so it's a little more expensive than it was in game 2, but the usage has been there, the floor has been there, the minutes will always be there. So I'm okay with Siakam. If he's high owned, I don't mind going away from that just because the price has come up a little bit. Randall, I think, is a really good pivot from him. That's going to be lower owned. Minnesota going back home. Hasn't been great in that series, but the minutes have been secure. Gobert is the one that they're rug pulling a little bit. So if I'm making a straight line pivot, it's going to be from Siakam to Randall. you want to have the Bobby Portis conversation?
Yeah, I think it's pretty important for the guy who's 73% owned on the slate. Let me just start it by saying 100% Bobby Portis is a good play in a vacuum. Matchup is good. Price is good. Role is good. Brook Lopez is losing minutes, and who's benefiting from that? 31 minutes in the last game, Portis did. Now, that said, Bobby Portis is fucking volatile. Like, he's not some super safe guy. Like, if he's not hitting his shots, he had 6 threes last game. If he's not doing that, he could bust. Now, at 5.2, Bobby Portis getting you 30, anywhere over 30 fantasy points, I think is a win, right? But if you can find somebody else in that similar price range that can meet him or exceed that, I think that is going to give you a massive edge on the field if the ownership actually is going to be at like 70%.
Yeah, it's just hard to fade because, like, the other values we're talking about, Jaden McDaniels, KCP, Aaron Nesmith, Rui Hachimura, like.
No, but there's
Portis
Nas, there's Horford, there's even Kuz.
Saying,
you could make a case for Kuz.
Yeah, I mean, you can. I think
mild.
Portis, like, I'm just saying, like, compared to those guys, except for perhaps Nas, Portis is like an elite per minute producer. He was horrible in game 1, though. Like, obviously, that's the floor, and then the ceiling we saw in game 2. So the reality is obviously somewhere in the middle. That's where he's most likely to land tonight. At 5-1, he can certainly get there. Like you said, 30 at 5-1 is fine.
Sure.
More than enough to smash the salary. It's just a question of whether you want to eat the ownership or a guy who maybe will get 30. But obviously the ceiling is 50. So it's a scary fade. I think it's a viable fade because there is a lot of mid-range value at this position you can pivot to. But, there's still ways to play him in a positive EV lineup, even at 73% ownership.
Yeah, I still, if I'm rolling out a lot of lineups, and if I'm just doing one lineup, I probably would still get to Bobby. I'm not making him a core play because that ownership is just absurd to me. And I do still think he's a good play. I just think, like, if he doesn't like really crush, 73% of the field is stuck with just an okay play, and then you're getting different also just naturally by not playing them. Like, immediately you can probably not worry that much about the rest of your build because it's just not.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't play him, I think you have enough leverage there. Probably.
Exactly. You don't have to do like anything else to get different. So you can eat a shit ton of chalk. Just don't eat the guy that literally 75% of the field is going to play. So no, this is good though, because we're kind of differing on it. Like, you're probably closer to eating the chalk. And I'm not saying fade Bobby Portis. Like, if you're doing a lot of lineups, do not play 0 Bobby Portis. He is a good play, but I will be very underweight personally. Like I said, there are a lot of other options here. Naz Reid looks good. That projection feels low. Al Horford, if all these bodies are out, he's going to be needed. He looks good. Like, those guys are cheaper. I am curious to see, like you were kind of alluding to, like Hauser and some of these other guys, where that ownership goes. If it gets to the point where like Bobby Portis' ownership just plummets, and then it's not really a big ownership like advantage for you anymore, then I would back off of like being super underweight just for ownership's sake. So where are you at with these other values, though?
Yeah, I mean, Horford's a great play with Tatum. Unlikely to play regardless of what happens with Drew and Jaylen Brown. So I'm fine going back to the well with him, even as chalk. Rui and Reed, we talked about Reed having foul trouble in the last game, but this series is going small with the Lakers essentially running LeBron at the 5 with Rui, however you arrange that. Gobert is kind of getting run off the floor, and Reed's the guy who's going to get the extra minutes. So as a buy low, Naz Reid's a pretty great pivot from Bobby at the same price, essentially at lower ownership. Mm-hmm. And the ceiling obviously is comparable, so I don't mind that at all. The one I'm interested in, well, a couple names, but Banchero on the high end, his usage has been through the roof. He's stuffing the stat sheet every night. It's like the Brunson thing, like, he has the ball in his hands every time down the floor. He's playing huge minutes. The matchup is bad, but it's clearly not affecting him too much. He's underowned compared to some of the other spends like Halliburton, Giannis, and Anthony Edwards. So Banchero in tournaments, I think, is a really good play against tonight with Orlando going back home. And Boston is potentially super undermanned.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, volume is king, man. We talk about minutes being currency for DFS, but I mean, in the name of Tony Snell, you can be out there for 30, 35 minutes, or KCP rather, even. and do a whole lot of nothing. But when you take 27 shots a game, you're probably going to end up doing some things. So I'm definitely with you there. By the way, I will say, I just want to mention Kuz, though, is another reason to feel a little bit good about going under on Bobby. Because if the Bucks are going to be in this game and actually have a chance to win, guys like Kuz and Dame, who are not owned right now, probably are going to have to show up. Or maybe Bobby just scores 30 real points and I eat my words. Either way. All right, at center, Giannis leads the way
one
there.
More pivot. One more cheap
Sure.
guy I would name is Finney Smith, just getting a ton of minutes for the Lakers. Another KCP pivot, 3,800. Not a player, like he's essentially KCP, the forward edition of KCP. But if he's going to be lower owned at the same price, I don't mind that pivot at all.
Yeah, he's literally the same price and literally the same player, but he's not gonna be owned. I like it. I mean, it's a pure minutes play, just like I'm kind of talking about like Rui and McDaniels a little bit, although they're a little bit more reliable than those guys. All right, so it's Giannis and then like everybody else. It's pretty bad at center as far as that goes. That said, if Jalen joins Tatum and if Drew's also out, like Porzingis, that projection is going to spike. Porzingis is going to look like a god. That's one play that I don't mind going to at 7.5K. He was solid in the first couple games here, and just he's going to have a shit ton of usage coming his way. Matchup is not great. Defensive environment is not great, but he's just going to be way too cheap. So I do like him a lot. You mentioned Julius Randle as a really nice pivot away from Siakam. Could still be the same case here if you wanted to play him at the 5 and pivot away from what could be an increasingly chalkier Porzingis. I would have no problem with that. You can use Bobby at the 5 if you want to play him. Like there's a lot of good options here as far as like value, like Turner, Al Horford, Naz Reid, where we talked about these guys. So center isn't bad. It's just the gap between Giannis and the next guy is just really, really big.
I think it's bad. Like,
well, it's for a 3-game slate. It's not bad as far as like, there's a lot of guys who can get you 30 to 35 fantasy points here.
Yeah. But the only like center onlys really on the radar would be Porzingis and like maybe Wendell Carter, but I think Wendell Carter is kind of bad chalk if he's going to be owned. Just not a guy who's ever going to show a high ceiling, which I always say about Scottie Pippen Jr. And then he scored 50 fantasy points last night. So,
well, he may have benefited from Ja dying.
Well, he scored like 20 in the first quarter when Ja was there. But anyway, I think Carter's an okay value, like another potential Portis pivot. But center only guys like Porzingis, and then not super into Miles Turner, not super into Gobert. Lopez's minutes are down, so it's a pretty rough position. I think KP would be my favorite one here overall, beyond like the power forwards like Giannis and Horford.
I think a big thing that we do in these videos, and sometimes when we like finalize our core plays, is we try to provide a little bit of nuance as far as like what is the path for somebody who looks awesome to fuck up and not hit at all. Apparently with Jimmy Butler and John Morant, it was to fall on their ass and dick and break their bodies, and then they didn't work out. But like on that flip, dude, like Scottie Pippen, we both agreed like fine price, good role. He's starting. That's nice. And like he was a fine value, but you made a perfectly fine point that when he's in the starting lineup, his usage is the same. He doesn't have the same upside. Then he just comes in and hits every shot and gets like a ton of steals. And like, he basically paid off immediately in the first quarter. That's just bad luck though. So like the same, I'm making the same kind of call, but the other way with like Bobby, or you're saying about Wendell. I think in Wendell's case though, as you said before, he just doesn't have a ceiling. And then you're putting him up against Porzingis and Horford. Like why, where is the path for Wendell Carter to actually get there and deliver? I don't really know if there is one. So I'm with you on that one. That is chalk I don't want to eat. I'll eat the Horford chalk. I'll play Naz if he's chalky. And then, I'll get a little bit of Bobby for sure. But the guy I like the most here really is going to be Porzingis if all these Boston guys are out. He's just he already looks good and too cheap kind of. But if that is the situation, like I'm really game for him. How do you feel though about like stacking up Celtics? Like how many Celtics is too many Celtics here?
If Holiday and Brown are out, you're looking at Pritchard, White, and Porzingis and Horford. So like that's 4 great plays right there. I think you can viably play all 4 together since they are going to be shorthanded. It's the playoffs. I don't really see them running like a 13-man rotation or anything like that. I don't think I'd play 5. Like if you want to play Hauser as a 5th, I probably wouldn't play all of them together. But I don't think 4 is insane in the salaries.
No, I think that'd be totally fine. I do think we always want to consider something, and that would be like, okay, of these 4 guys that we really, really like from this one team, who's most likely to fail? Or who's like the most owned that I can live without? I think you kind of already hit on the head. Derek White's probably the first one out if that presents itself. We'd go with Pritchard, Porzingis, and Horford. Pritchard and Horford because they're just way too cheap, and then Porzingis because I feel like he's got a better ceiling, is a little bit safer. That's where I'm at on the Celtics. But we'll see. We'll see how it all carries out. All right, let's wrap things up here with our flag plant of the night. I think our strategy is going to be fairly similar.
I think I'll flag plant LeBron, like single digit on LeBron on a 3-game playoff slate. In a game, it's a tied series, 1-1. They're going on the road for the first time. LeBron showed up in the last game. Like, he was playing his ass off. I could see him just putting forth a similar effort tonight. And if he's going to be that low owned, I'm very interested. It's not even hard to get over the field. Like, you only have to play a couple of LeBron lineups in the 20 minutes or something like that to get over. So that's something I would do. I think you can play LeBron in single entry as well. And, that's a way of getting different. So I'm just going to ride or die with LeBron, I guess, on this slate.
Yeah, he's a really good, easy play, especially if you plan on eating a lot of the chalk. I like him a lot. I already said that. So I'm with you on that one. And I agree. Like, you don't have to go play 45% of LeBron in your lineups to get over the field here. You can just play him a few times, and if the other chalk hits, then you'll be totally fine. As for me, I'm going to double down on the whole Bobby and Bucks thing. I'm not fading Bobby, but I'm going to be way underweight if that's where the ownership is coming in as we get closer to lock. I think the Celtics news is going to possibly dictate that a little bit to the point where it won't be such a big deal. But in unison with that, I'm going to go over on Dame, and I think I'm also going to get to Kuz a little bit. I think if Bobby does not hit, somebody else like Dame, Kuz, probably not Brook Lopez. I don't think I want to mess with him with his minutes going down. But I think somebody else is going to step up here besides Giannis. You get chalky Giannis, I'm okay with. 73% on volatile Bobby Portis. I'll take a stand and take my chances against it. All right, that is going to do it for us. Hopefully this does help you out. If it does, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and get access to our picks and stacks for all the sports we cover. Just got to hit up our Patreon, which is linked at the bottom of this video. Just $5.99 a month for all the stuff we have to offer there, plus access to our Discord. All righty, thanks for watching, and good luck.